most welcome to Historiespanarna History Reconnaissance and Korean War Railroads from Pusan to the front line. When North Korea attacked and invaded the Republic of Korea in June 1950, the ROK Army was routed and retreated to the Pusan Perimeter in the southeast of the Korean peninsula. The first objective of the US intervention in the Korean War was to stabilize a perimeter around Pusan, the only deep draft port available to the US Army. Pusan provided a critical link in the lifeline of men and materiel from Japan and the United States. A key factor in stabilizing the front and supporting the offensive that later followed was the railroad network of Korea, an infrastructure that had been developed during the Japanese occupation of Korea before and during World War II. So follow us and watch the men, tanks, trucks and supply roll down the tracks towards or retreating from the rapidly shifting front lines. And please, subscribe to our channel and join us in Journey History. On July 4th, the Far East Command swiftly set up the Pusan Base Command to oversee port operations. Task Force Smith advanced by rail and truck, engaging the first US battle against North Korean forces at Osan on July 5th. With port operations underway, a truck platoon arrived, followed by the Provisional 9th Army Unit Transportation Railway Service on July 9th. The 25th Infantry Division began arriving on July 9th, soon followed by the 1st Cavalry Division. The 859th Army Unit oversaw railroad operations and maintenance, while locomotive crews were supplied by the Korean National Railroad. In August 1950, the US 764th and 765th Transport Railway Shop Battalions, along with the 714th Transportation Railway Operating Battalion, arrived in Korea. However, these units were under strength, and only about 20% of their personnel had prior railroad experience. As a result, the US railroad personnel primarily rode the trains to ensure that Korean crews maintained the schedule. During the Korean War, the United States and UN forces carried out aerial bombing campaigns targeting North Korean infrastructure. The Pyongyang rail yard was subjected to repeated bombing raids and was heavily damaged to cripple the North Korean capital's rail-based supply. The Yalu River bridges, critical for Chinese forces entering Korea from Manchuria, were repeatedly bombed after China's entry in the war in late 1950. After the Incheon landings in September 1950, the US and UN forces rapidly expanded their use of the Korean railway network in the newly liberated areas. Retreating North Korean forces implemented scorched earth tactics, demolishing bridges, lifting rails, and in some cases destroying or taking rolling stock. While track destruction slowed operations, the damage was uneven. In many areas, rail lines were quickly patched using captured equipment, salvaged rails, and bridging materials brought in by US engineers. US and UN transport units worked with the Korean National Railroad to push trains as far as forward as possible, allowing truck transports to be reserved for shorter hauls from railheads to combat units. During the Chinese counteroffensive in late November 1950, the railway situation for US and UN forces shifted dramatically from rapid expansion to an emergency withdrawal. UN rail operations beyond Pyongyang became untenable almost immediately. Rolling stock was moved south, wherever possible to avoid capture. Several locomotives and cars had to be abandoned when repairs could not be made quickly enough to keep them moving. Chinese and North Korean forces targeted rail with demolition teams, artillery, and some airstrikes. UN forces also destroyed tracks and blew up bridges to deny the enemy use of the network. By early January 1951, almost all organized UN rail operations were south of the Han River. In short, the counteroffensive for the complete rollback of the railhead from near the Yalo back to central South Korea in less than 6 weeks. As North Korean troops advanced rapidly southward, millions of South Koreans fled from the northern and central parts of the peninsula. The fall of Seoul in June 1950 caused a massive exodus of civilians, many fleeing on foot, by boat, or on overloaded trains and trucks. It was one of the largest mass displacements in modern East Asian history. After a successful Incheon landing, refugees who had fled south began to return northward, hoping to reclaim homes and reunite with family. Following the Chinese intervention, UN and South Korean troops retreated south again, and civilians in the north once more fled south in harsh winter conditions. An estimated 5 million civilians were displaced during the Korean War overall, with a large proportion of that movement occurring in 1950. North Korea began the war with an offensive rail advantage, but suffered as UN bombing dismantled its network, forcing alternative supply methods. After the Chinese entry into the war, the rail link from Manchuria into North Korea became their supply lifeline. South Korea started with major rail losses, but, under UN control, turned its rebuilt southern network into a powerful logistics backbone for the war effort. For the South, restoring rail service was both a military necessity and a sign of reclaiming national territory and infrastructure from the North.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.